Bung Pod. Welcome back, Wine Wonder Boy.
And we got Jazzy J. Jazzy!
What is a bung?
The hole of the barrel is called a bung hole. Inside the bung hole is called a bung. Wine with mayhem. That's what it's about. All right, welcome back to the Bung Pod. It's your boy Ian King, aka Wine Wonder Boy, and I got my co-host with me, Jazzy J. Jazzy, say what's up.
Hi, everybody.
So we have a really awesome episode for you guys. Before we get to the episode, give us a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform that you're listening to this on. That gives more eyes to our podcast and more listeners. So we'd really appreciate that. But today we have the winemaker for Sleight of Hand Cellars. We have TREY BUSCH. What's up, Trey? How's it going, man?
What's going on? Good to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So right now we have a bottle, one of your wines. We have the Psychedelic Syrah 2020 Stony Vine Estate Vineyard. So is this...
Well, look at you. See? I opened up an old bottle of Levitation. Where's it at?
Oh. What year is that?
It's another Syrah that we make. It's one of our wine club Syrahs that we make. I just went down to I'm like, I probably should have some wine for this.
Obviously.
So,
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So
always have a glass in hand.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's a delicious bottle you guys are popping right now. So hopefully you're gonna enjoy it.
I know I got this one a couple years ago, and I was going through my cellar the other day, and I was like, oh, how convenient.
How convenient. Now we got something to drink while we're talking to each other. That's perfect.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, I fell in love with your wines when I visited Walla Walla for the first time in June. I spent most of my wine career in Santa Barbara, California.
Beautiful place.
A beautiful place, really expensive to live there. And so that's why I moved back up to Washington, because this is where I'm from originally. I'm from Seattle. So, I went to your tasting room in Walla Walla, got to meet Keith, got to pick a record. I'm a huge music person. My whole family, they're all musicians or music influenced.
Oh, perfect.
And I went to actually audio engineering school and did a lot of music history programs as well. So I have an appreciation for a lot of music. And so that was a blast.
The question is, what's the album you picked out?
The album was... it was a Nirvana record. It was, it was.
Nothing wrong with that. Hold on.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah. And I loved your merch too. Your guys' merch is awesome. I bought the Fleetwood Mac design.
Oh yeah.
I love that shirt.
Yeah. That's a good one. So yeah, we have fun with all those. It's the music is a fun way to tie in my just love of music, which I'm not a musician. I just, music's been very important in my life. And it's been the wine business, incorporating music into the wine business has been a lot of fun for us. And whether it's with the vinyl in the tasting room or whether it's with our t-shirts, it's sort of a full circle thing for me. So
you say you're not a musician, but I hear you're into air guitar.
World-class air guitar player. That is true. That is true.
I needed to mention that. I read that and I was like, I should ask.
What does it take to be a world-class air guitar player?
It takes 3 glasses of wine.
I love that.
Do you have a specific song that you really like to play air guitar with?
I mean, for sure, the entire AC/DC Back in Black album, which was I was a freshman in high school. That came out in 83. I was a freshman in 84. And have very fond memories of listening to that album with my high school friends in the back of a Monte Carlo Super Sport, driving way too fast and listening to the music way too loud.
Yes.
And, if I had to go back to anything, it'd be pretty much any cut off of that album. So, but as a big Pearl Jam fan, I'm pretty fluent in most Pearl Jam too. So,
okay, nice.
So you guys have a relationship with Pearl Jam, is that right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we have done some charity projects with them. Obviously, I named the winery after a Pearl Jam song, and
Yeah.
have over the years gotten to know a lot of folks that worked for the band, and he certainly, met some of the band members and stuff. But yeah, we did when they played in 2018 back in Seattle,
Yeah.
the home shows. At the time, we had a partnership with Mark Ryan Winery. We had this winery called the Underground Wine Project, and we did a wine for Pearl Jam back in 2018, and then we did another one for them. I think it was in 2021. Just another small one-off project to help raise some money for their Vitology Foundation, which is their charitable arm. But yeah, and then a lot of the wines that we make are actually named after Pearl Jam songs too. So it's just one of those things. It's like, honoring the band that I love so much. So
Good.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's cool. You get a chance to work with them as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you ever think that was going to happen? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, if I go back to my early days of winemaking when I was at Dunham, back in the early 2000s, I remember Eric and I went to the Key Arena Pearl Jam show. I think this is the Binaural Tour or something like that in 2000. I just started working for Eric.
Okay.
And Eric's like, how do you think we can get some wine back to the band? I said, well, I'm on an email friendly relationship with the folks who work in the office. I'll see if they can let us do that. And that was kind of really our first sort of, we got some Dunham Cabernet back there. And then a few years later, I was going down to LA, and I was working for another winery at that point, at Basil Cellars, and reached out.
Yeah, you helped start that, right?
Yeah, I started that winery in 2002.
Okay.
2002 was our first year. And then I left there in the spring of 2007. So right after the 2006 vintage. So really vintages 2, 3, 4, and 5, 2002 through 2005 were my vintages, sort of grape to bottle.
Okay.
I had crushed the 06s, but I left 6 months after harvest to start Sleight of Hand. So I have no idea what happened to any of the 06s from a blending standpoint and stuff. So
before you went to Dunham, you were at Nordstrom's for quite a while. What were you doing at Nordstrom's, and how did it end up changing your career path to wine? Yeah.
I did a lot of things at Nordstrom. I started there in 1992.
Okay.
I had moved from Athens, Georgia back to Seattle because I was in the Navy from 88 to 90. And I was stationed in Bremerton.
Oh, okay.
A ferry ride across from Seattle right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm from Bainbridge, actually.
That was my, oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that was my introduction to the Northwest. And it was really right when the Seattle music scene was really just kind of bubbling up and about to explode. And I got out of the Navy in the summer of 90, and I moved back to Georgia, which is where I was originally from. I grew up in Atlanta.
Okay.
And was enrolled at the University of Georgia. And in that 2-year period, that's when Seattle really blew up. And I was at the point where I just did not want to miss being at an age where I could afford to fuck off, essentially.
Yes.
I wanted to be around that music scene, and I didn't want to miss it. Athens, Georgia they were the center of the universe for a short period of time in the early 80s with REM and the B-52s and a bunch of other bands. And then, of course, LA in the 80s with all the metal bands. The punk scene in the late 70s in New York. So all these scenes that were happening in San Francisco in the 60s, all these scenes were happening. And the writing was on the wall that Seattle was going to be that was going to be it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to miss it. And so I dropped out of school and I moved back to Seattle and took a job at Nordstrom. I had a really great time there. I started off just in the stock room, and by the time I left, I was a buyer for the company. I was buying men's suits of all things. But during that time frame, a friend of mine who I used to buy records from, he owned a record store off of Roosevelt and 63rd called Ruby Records, and his name was Jamie Brown. And Jamie was the winemaker. You'll know that name because he was the winemaker for Waters Winery. He started Waters Winery back in the mid 2000s. But Jamie had moved back to Walla Walla, which is where he's originally from. And I went to go visit Jamie and just sort of fell in love with the town. And Eric Dunham happened to be his next door neighbor. And I met Eric on one of my trips down there, and that turned into a friendship, which turned into a job opportunity.
That's
so
awesome.
Leave Seattle and move to Walla Walla and learn how to make wine. And so I had no prior winemaking knowledge in any way, shape, or form. I really didn't know the first thing about the world of wine at all. But I knew sales and marketing. And I knew I liked his wine a lot. And, I remember it was $45 retail. His Cabernet, the 97 Dunham Cabernet was $45. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
God, who spent that kind of money?
I was going to say, especially back then.
Yeah,
I was a 28-year-old kid who, spending $10 in a bottle of Chateau Ste. Michelle for a special night,
Yeah, absolutely.
And And so that, he said, look, I'll teach you how to make wine. You can help us on the sales and marketing side of things. We're growing our brand. Dunham was in a fairly steep growth curve at that point in the late 99, 2000. And I did it. So I quit my job at Nordstrom and moved to Walla Walla. And Eric took me under his wing and taught me as much as you can teach somebody. He was a very artistic winemaker. He was not a very scientific winemaker, and that's more difficult to teach. And from the standpoint of, why are you doing this? Well, it feels right.
Yeah.
What does that? That doesn't help me at all. What does that mean? It feels right. And so eventually I had to learn that too, though. I had to learn. I had to just basically trust my own instincts. And so after I left Eric and went to Basil, that's what I did. I took, I certainly made as many mistakes as I had, as many wins as I had. I certainly had lots of, that didn't work out very well. But that's okay. Those were my learning years for sure. And now that we've settled into, we're really comfortable with where our winemaking is. You met Keith, who's my production winemaker. So Keith is my guy in the cellar.
Yeah.
Bailey, our assistant winemaker, and all of our cellar hands essentially work for Keith. Keith and I and Jerry really work hand in hand, side by side. I spend the majority of my time in the vineyards, and
that's my favorite place too.
Like if I can grow the best grapes possible in each vintage, because every vintage is different. If I can grow the grapes best possible and deliver those to the winery, they really don't have to do that much. You know what I mean? It's basically at that point, you're just babysitting your grapes through fermentation. We're all native in the winery, so we're not using cultured yeast. We don't add acid. We don't add enzymes. We don't add tannin. We're a fairly hands-off winery. And so I think that it does require you to pay a little more attention to what's happening in the vineyard, to make sure that you're picking dates and your picking decisions are the right ones, because we don't want to have to manipulate what we did on the back end. Once you bring the grapes in. And so that's really where my focus has turned to since Keith has been full-time with us, at least full-time as our winemaker. I hired Keith in 2011. And I think by 2014 or 15, I gave him just the winemaking title. And probably by 15 and 16 had really, the first 4 or 5 years, not only was I in the vineyard, but I was in the cellar with him, and we were making all these decisions together. But now it's, we've got a pretty good setup there.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about, on the winemaking side, your opinion on low intervention versus manipulation, and then why, because I know that after talking with Keith, I heard about the hands-off approach, lower intervention style of winemaking. And so I was just going to ask you for the listeners, why would you choose a lower intervention versus manipulation?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like if I go back and look at all my previous years at Basil and our first 3, 4, 5 years at Sleight of Hand, We were doing some of those things. We were trying to figure out if they made better wines or not. Like, hey, let's add some tannin to this to, really pump up the mouthfeel. Or, the acid feels a little low. Let's bump the TA up with acid. And I think what we've learned, first of all, we have a very consistent vineyard portfolio. And that's not super common in Washington. Washington, a lot of small wineries are working with vineyards they don't own. They're on a 3-year contract. They may not re-up their contract at the end of 3 years, and they'll go somewhere else. Or the vineyard owner will say, hey, I'm raising my prices, and I have another buyer. I'm not going to sell my... So there's some inconsistency there. And that was us in our first 2 or 3 years as well. It's Sleight of Hand and even at Basil. But we've got either they're estate vineyards or we have a long-term contract with them. And like 20 or 25 year. We're not interested in
okay, good.
2 or 3 year contract.
Yeah. No need to.
So basically locking these in to where now I know where my fruit's coming from. I know what those vineyards taste like. I know how to treat them. I know what they do in cool vintages. I know what they do in hot vintages. I know what the chemistry looks like coming out of those vineyards. And so the more you get to work with those things, you learn that
what the babies need.
Do as much stuff on the back end when you bring the grapes in. And, you also learn things like, hey, how is this Cabernet going to perform at 23 bricks instead of 25 bricks, right? And, you experiment with that stuff. And on the back end, after you're tasting the wines, you're like, these wines are awesome at 23 bricks. Why were we picking at 25 bricks? 23 and a half or whatever the numbers are. And I'm not trying to stick a number on anything, but that that's
and that's the importance.
Made some of the decisions. Yeah, that's how I made some of the decisions that we made.
Yeah, I mean, when those grapes get to 23 and you want them at 23, you're out there.
Yeah, and it we are absolutely tasting grapes. We want to make sure that the seeds are lignified in our Bordeaux varietals, especially our Rhone program. I mean, I have no problem picking Syrah at 22 and a half bricks. Not everything is like that. And not all of our, each vineyard performs at a higher level at a different sugar level, right? So like, for instance, the Funk Vineyard, we make a wine out the rocks called the Funkadelic. You're drinking the second.
Yeah.
The Funk Vineyard, it wants to be a bigger wine. That's just, we've tried it at lower potential alcohol, and it's just not as interesting. So again, the only way to learn that is you have to be able to experiment with it. And so we've gotten to the point now where we have we've worked with these vineyards long enough, and we've worked with these blocks long enough, and we know how these things perform for us at different quote unquote numbers that we recognize that we don't have to manipulate stuff on the back end to make a great wine. We can just make really good picking decisions. And more importantly, we can make sure that we were spending time out in the vineyard making decisions with our vineyard managers about leaf stripping or not leaf stripping, about dropping fruit or leaving a heavy crop. Things like that are going to affect the outcome, obviously. And so that's why I feel like the more time that I can spend out there, the less work my team will have to do on the back end in the winery.
Totally.
Absolutely.
And so you said you had some estate vineyards. How many acres and what kind of grapes do you have out there?
Stony Vine is our estate vineyard, which you're drinking right now.
Yeah.
And that's it's a 20 acre parcel, 18 and a half acres planted, mostly to Syrah. We own the vineyard with Dusted Valley Winery, and Dusted Valley is our vineyard partner, and they're
Didn't
our
we just
winery
have that
partner
the other day?
Yeah, the last episode we had a Dusted Valley.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
They're BFM, they're Bordeaux blend.
Yeah.
It's great. They do a great job.
They do a great job.
Yeah.
And they're awesome partners. That's actually a picture of Stony Vine behind me.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
People are like, well, why do they call it Stony Vine? I just show them that picture and they're like, oh, Okay,
Good. Yeah,
That makes sense.
I do like the amount of detail that you put on the back label as well. I mean, it says 1 vineyard, 9 puncheons, 500 cases, pure rock Syrah. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but ancient riverbed, softball size cobbles, foot crush, native fermentation, 50 whole cluster, 15 new French oak. It's awesome. I love reading. I love tech sheets a lot, just because I'm in production.
I'm the same way, and I've been accused of being very wordy, and so like that's our.
Yes.
So you have to either be young with good eyesight, or you have to have readers. But
yeah.
I'm the same way. I like information on the back of a bottle. I think it's look, if everybody bought every bottle of wine ever made out of my tasting room, it probably would not be as necessary because they got the story when they were there. But the fact is, a lot of this stuff is going to see a retail shelf somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the further you get away from Washington, the less they really know about Washington wine. And I'm going to let you know what's going on with this wine. I'm going to tell you the vineyard sources. I'm going to tell you the barrel program. I'm going to tell you the aromatic and the flavor profile that we get, and I'm going to give you the drinking window as well.
Any way to educate from afar.
Yeah.
How many retail spaces are you in? Is it national, international?
I mean, we're in the UK. We are in Denmark.
Oh,
which is kind of cool.
Awesome.
And we're in about 20 states.
That's awesome.
And because we make our portfolio of wines goes from $22 up to $125. And then we have a second label called the Renegade Wine Company, and those are little $12 Cabernet and Rosé and Chardonnay. And so those really are meant for distribution. What you're drinking, we do have a distribution as well, but that's also one of our wine club wines. We have a wine club that's built around the rocks. And so it's funkadelic, psychedelic, and currently Spiders from Mars, which is up in North Fork.
That's awesome.
Oh, interesting.
It's a new growing region. Next time you guys come to Wawa, we'll drive you guys up there. It's probably the most exciting vineyard project outside of Weather Eye.
That's
awesome.
Weather Eye is pretty exciting. Yeah. And we work with Weather Eye too. We make Grenache from that vineyard site. So we love those extreme sites. They make very, very complex, different tasting wines from anything else in the region. You taste the top. If you taste Weather Eye fruit compared to just below that, and we work with Red Mountain Vineyard, which is one of our estate blocks. We have 5 acres on Red Mountain down there, all Bordeaux varietals. I didn't answer your question. Yeah. So Stony Vine, Red Mountain, we have 5 acres. We have 5 acres in the Horse Seven Hills, and we have 8 acres here in Walla Walla that are our estate blocks. And then the Ziggy Stardust block, which is a little under 2 acres of Syrah up at elevation. Those are our estate blocks. And then again, we work with like other long-term contracts like Lake Helene Vineyard, Lewis Vineyard, for Syrah. But all of our Bordeaux stuff is essentially all estate for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's your case production like?
It depends on the vintage. 21 was a tough vintage from the standpoint of we were down 35% roughly in yields. So we made about 6,500 cases. Our normal case production, it should be between 9 and 10,000 cases. Okay. The majority of that goes into 2 wines. We make one wine called the Conjurer. It's our Bordeaux blend, estate Bordeaux blend. And we have a red table wine, which is our little $25 red table wine called the Spellbinder. And those 2 wines combined are between 3,000 and 4,000 cases.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the other 5,000 to 6,000 cases go into the other 10 SKUs that we make.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought you guys were a lot larger than that, because my question was going to be, how can you make wine at such volume with the quality that you're making it in? But still, I mean, you guys have a big influence within the wine world in general. And
thanks. Well, I would say we're like a mid-sized winery in Walla Walla, right? The small guys are all under 5,000 cases. And most of them, to be honest, are probably under 2,000 cases. And then you get to our level, and then you go next level would be, a L'Ecole 41.
Totally.
They're probably in that 30 to 40,000 case range.
Mhm.
And then of course you have Waterbrook and Precept, and there are a million cases. So that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Completely. So,
and you guys have a lot. You guys do a lot. Like you have a lot of SKUs, I feel like, and which is not a bad thing at all. It's just like you guys have to be so organized in the cellar and a lot of communication.
And you have to go sell those wines.
Yeah, totally.
It's not easy when you're offering a portfolio of 10 to 12 wines every year. And you're in distribution. It's hard for distributors to focus on your brand in that way. And so the reality is things like the Funkadelic, that's wine club only. Spiders from Mars is tasting room only. Most of it goes to wine club, but we do have it in the tasting room so people can come in and buy it if they want to. But
yeah, I have a bottle of Funkadelic.
Oh, right on.
That's a delicious
bottle of wine.
Yeah. It's a special one I'm just keeping for a while.
Yeah.
We made 70 cases of a Roussan Marsanne blend called Rebel Rebel from 2021.
Delicious.
That's off the same vineyard as the Spiders from Mars is.
Okay.
And then we make a couple other small, tiny productions. Syrahs. We make a little bit of Weather Eye Grenache. That's called Higher Ground. And that's 100 cases, maybe, if even that.
Yeah.
But our core portfolio is really, we make a dry Riesling, which is like a 700 or 800 case production.
Yeah.
We make Old Vine Chardonnay, which is about 400 or 500 cases. We make a Cab Franc Rosé, which is about 500 cases. And then you go into the reds, and you're at Spellbinder Conjure, Archimage Illusionist, our 2 Reserve Bordeaux. And again, we have a big wine club, and so they can take a lot of those reserve wines too.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But we still make them available. We still want them to be in the market. We want you to be able to find them at a restaurant. We want you to go into a nice wine shop and find them.
You said you had a second label. Okay. And for that, I mean, obviously you like second or approve of second labels, but I feel like there's always some controversy against second labels. Either it's
I mean, it's
really good or
like for us, ours is completely. It doesn't. No, if you didn't know that it was our second label, you wouldn't know it was a Sleight of Hand wine at all. It's called the Renegade Wine Company. Packaging is completely different. Pricing is, again, they're $12 wines. It's a negotiant project for us. We make all those wines of the Wahluke Wine Company with Kendall Nix, who's an incredible winemaker up there. And again, we work with him hand in hand with a style of wine that we're trying to make.
Yeah.
And,
gotcha.
So it's completely separate. It's like off-site. It's not, you're not making it in your production. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All made up in Mattawa.
Oh, yeah.
And,
okay.
So we do rosé that's all Rhone varietals. We do Cabernet, but it's done in neutral barrel.
Okay.
And so it's very, very approachable.
Yeah.
And that's the other idea is it's a great glass pour cab, right? You walk into a restaurant, not the Metropolitan Grill or El Gaucho, they're going to pour a high-end wine, but just your everyday casual restaurant that has a wine program. It's a great glass pour program.
Yeah.
And then we've got a stainless steel Chardonnay as well.
Awesome.
And so
Nice.
the idea is they're just clean and fruit forward, balanced, and just like crushable, I guess.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the alternative vessels for wine, like pouches, boxes, cans, even screw tops?
I mean, we use screw cap with a lot of stuff. We do some keg business.
Okay.
Not a ton, but we do a little bit of keg business. We have a couple restaurants in Seattle that we service, and we'll just basically bottle a barrel at a time. And as they run through them, we'll keep 3 or 4. We'll have an idea about how much you're going to sell for the year. We'll keep 3 or 4 barrels and sort of fill them up that way. I am 100% behind all the alternative closures. The wine in a bag is awesome.
Yeah.
Very convenient.
I love it.
Great.
Yeah.
If you're going on a raffle trip, you're going camping or whatever, it's like all that is amazing.
Yeah.
But the problem is it's not about us getting behind it.
Yeah.
It's how do you get consumers behind it?
Yeah.
And we're at a really weird time in the wine world right now.
We are.
Wine consumption's fallen off a cliff, it feels like, in some ways.
Yeah.
Younger consumers aren't necessarily not to say the younger consumers when I was young was turning to wine either.
Yeah.
But it seems like even more extreme now because you've got cocktails in a can, and you've got hard cider is popular, and you've got seltzers, and you've got mocktails. You know, I've got a 25-year-old daughter who I don't think has ever touched alcohol. You know, she goes to school in Bozeman. She just doesn't drink. None of her friends drink.
Yeah, and that's becoming a thing. They'd rather have a kombucha than a
Hey, no one. I say no one's talking about it, but it's not brought up often. But if you have disposable income, a little bit of disposable income, not a lot. You're in your 20s, and now, depending on where you live, you can go buy a cannabis.
Yeah,
you can go to Oregon and go buy mushroom chocolates, right?
Yeah,
totally.
And so there are alternatives out there that just weren't around when we were, at least when I was younger. It was, you just drank booze.
Yeah.
And so all of those things come into play when we talk about where wine sales are. Now, going back to your alternative packaging, I think younger consumers are the ones who would be interested in looking at bag in a box or the canned wines and all that stuff.
Almost going back to slap in the bag.
Yeah, back in college.
They just think it's fancier now.
Yeah, it's just trying to get, like, how do you go to let's say most of those kids are buying their alcoholic beverages at a grocery store, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they're at Met Market. They're not even at Safeway. They're at the Met Market, which has a nice wine program, right? It's what it comes down to is the Met Market wine buyer going to get behind that trend?
Yeah.
Are they going to put wines in a bag on their shelves?
Yeah.
And those are the roadblocks that a lot of us run into. Do you guys know Jeff Lindsay Thorson from WT Vintners?
That kind of sounds familiar.
Not personally. No.
Yeah. I recognize the name.
Yeah, he's a SOM. He might have been an MS, but he's for sure a SOM who got into winemaking, got a great palate. He's doing, I think it's his rosé in a bag this year.
Nice.
And it's maybe like 100 cases worth, right? It wasn't like his entire production that he did that way, but he still did a portion of it. And my guess is to see what kind of traction he can get off of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I know the Walls did a rosé their summer.
Yeah, cool summer.
Yeah,
summer.
Cool summer,
in a bag, and that just like flying off the shelves.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they only do direct to consumer with that one, but I haven't seen it in stores personally. But I mean, that always sells out every year, which is awesome. I mean, it's what, like a 3-liter bags, like 4 bottles of wine. For
the beauty of it is you keep in your fridge. You got the little pouch thing. You can push the little rubber thing. I don't know. It's great.
Yeah, stays fresh for 60 days.
Especially when it comes to summer, for the boat, for camping, for anything outdoors.
But how about for not having to use glass?
Yes.
Yeah. Right?
And do dishes.
The environmental impact of that alone is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, look, screw caps took a while to take off. And so maybe wines in a bag will catch on, because screw caps, no one even questions screw caps anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and even here in Chelan, this is going to be kind of shocking, but we actually, our recycling program is no longer a thing. So
same here in Walla Walla. We lost glass recycling 2 years ago here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we no longer do glass, but I think it was the high school started it, but then Rotary got behind it. And now every Saturday they do a crush on glass. So at least the wineries have some place to bring it. And then they make it into sand or whatever they want to.
We have a similar program that was started here as well by a local guy. And we have to pay. It's a very small amount of money, but we pay to drop our bottles off and they turn it into, they grind it up and you can spread it in your gravel.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're not sharp pieces. They're just worn down.
Yeah.
So you can just sort of spread it amongst your gravel as well to kind of help keep things compact and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
At least it's an alternative to taking away recycling for us.
And then I've heard in Seattle when they pave roads, they actually throw it in the
why not?
Cement.
Why wouldn't you put it in there
asphalt.
with asphalt and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Makes
great
sense.
idea.
Nobody
Hopefully it'll
knows.
last longer.
Yeah, it's got to go
Honestly.
somewhere, and so
And we're gonna keep drinking it. So
Yeah. I mean, what Santa Barbara did is because I mean California in general, and also I think Seattle, very focused on being eco-friendly and saving the planet, which I love. Very green. But because of that, I mean they're still recycling, but they have to hire more people to take the glass out of the recycling, and throw it in. I think I don't even know what they do with it. They might do a landfill with it, but they didn't tell people to stop recycling glass because that would have been a huge uproar in the community. And so they're like, okay, we're just not going to tell them to not do it. We'll just hire people to pick it out, essentially.
I mean,
the
fact is our local municipalities or even on a state level, that's where the funding should come from to have recycling programs. I understand it costs more money to recycle than it does for them to get the money back on the back end.
Yeah.
But, you know, overall, if it's for the health of everybody, you know, it's for the good of the people, everybody.
Yeah.
Then that should be a civic program. It should be something that the state pays for.
Yeah.
Now, I say the state pays for it. That means we pay for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're paying taxes anyways.
You know, look, build that into our. We either build it into our pricing or the glass manufacturers or, you know, again, a tax or whatever. But
yes.
You know, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I love this psychedelics.
I know. It's so good.
So, you know, the rocks, I'm sure you've had plenty of wines from the rocks by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love the savory qualities that come out of that area. It's been said 1,000 times that the most recognizable AVA in North America from the standpoint of sensory.
Yeah.
You can smell and taste that wine blind, and you're going to know where it's from.
Yeah.
You know, you may not know it's mine, but you know, could be Rheinband, could be Kite, whatever. But what I've discovered in the rocks is there are differences depending on where in the rocks you are of how the wines are. So that's, you know, we have the Funkadelic and the Psychedelic. We tried our first vintage of the Psychedelic, 2012, we made identical to how we made the first 3 vintages of the Funkadelic. Picked it up at 24.5 bricks, you know, 25 bricks.
Yeah.
And we ended up declassifying our very first vintage.
Yeah.
That wine.
Interesting.
And so 2013 came along. We made some changes. We picked it a lot earlier. We used a lot more stems, and we used a lot less oak on it, new oak. And that was our first official vintage that we bottled the Psychedelic. And I remember Sean Sullivan from Northwood, who was a wine enthusiast at the time.
Oh yeah,
You know, it's a very, very hard. Like he is a tough scorer, right? Like
he's very tough
all day long.
Yeah.
And the first vintage, when we bottled that, sent it into him. I think we got 95 points for that first vintage. And I thought, okay, see, we made the right decision.
Yeah.
I know he wouldn't have hated the 2012, but it wasn't as good as what the Funk was.
Yeah.
And why would we bottle our own estate wine if we didn't think it was going to be as good, if not better, than what we were getting from Mitch's Vineyard, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's when we started recognizing the fact that different parts of the Rocks district, it's not just one style out of there. You know, there's that for me, the Stony Vine Vineyard is a more elegant, prettier style compared to the Funk, which is a little beefier, bulked up version of the Rocks, I guess.
Yeah.
My question is, how funky is too funky? Because I mean, for me, I'm like Biggie Smalls.
Horsepower wines are too funky for me.
I mean, I'm like Biggie Smalls. I live for the funk. I die for the funk. But sometimes It's a little too funky.
It can be too funky. That wasn't a false statement I just made. Yeah, like I've had 2 different horsepower wines from Christoph. And both of them I could get through maybe half a glass.
Yeah.
And what I think my feeling about those wines are that those wines are going to require 15 years in the bottle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before they shed a lot of that funk. And I've never asked Christoph that question at all. I should, but I'm curious if that was his motivation behind the horsepower product, and he wanted to make a wine that was going to last the same way some of the great Rhones do, for 40, 50 years.
Right.
But they are just so reductive and lack any sense of fruit at a young age.
Yeah.
And I'm all about savory. I mean, psychedelic is it's savory, but it's still pretty and elegant. And there, you'll pick out the fruit components for sure. But
And the rocks to me reminds me a lot of Santa Rita Hills sometimes.
Say that again.
The Rocks district, it reminds me a lot of Santa Rita Hills in Santa Barbara sometimes, because in Santa Rita Hills, it's mostly all diatomaceous earth. It's really close to the ocean. So you're getting a lot of the ocean breeze, ocean fog sitting in there. So it's like a micro cool climate. And it's very salty and olive tapenade, but there's still fruit.
I've tasted, I think I've probably tasted more Pinots from that area than I have Syrahs from Santa Rita Hills. So I can't really speak to Syrah in a broad way out of that area. Certainly, climate-wise, they're very different.
Totally.
But when you talk about that saline and that olive, those are 2 of the top 5 tasting notes in Rocks wines.
Yeah, and that's why I love Rocks wines. I spent the majority of my wine career in Santa Barbara, and so having like a house palate like that, coming to Washington and tasting Rocks wines, I'm like, oh, this tastes like home. It's like I will say I think that I don't know what their chemistry is like in that area, but one thing that I think is unique about the Rocks district is these wines texturally are so soft on entry and fairly rich. And it's not because of the alcohol level, it's because of the pHs. So the 2020 vintage you're drinking right now, what's the alcohol in that? 13.5, 13.9, 13.7? 13.9.
Yeah.
The psychedelic in most vintages, the 21 was an anomaly because it was just so hot. By the time I got the grapes off, we were already at like 23.5, 24 bricks. But typically under 14%. But we're dealing with pHs, picking pHs at 4.0. So we have finished pHs of 4.1, very common in the Rocks. And there's not a lot of places that make wines like that. They're just they're freakish numbers. But that wine has acid in it. So even though it's 4.0 pH, you would think that there's 0 acid, but that's got 5.2 or 5.3 grams per liter of natural tartaric acid. And if you were to show those numbers to like a UC Davis professor, they would like, oh, those numbers don't make sense. And you can't do that. But we have so much potassium in our soils. Down the Rocks district, and a ton of nitrogen.
I could see that.
These were farmed apples and cherries and tree fruits for 100 years, which just take loads and loads of nitrogen. And so we're still burning through, our vines are still burning through the nitrogen was left over from all of those, from the orchards. What we find is that they make for very fast and hot fermentation because we're all native, right? So we will foot crush them, get them in our cold room, let them sit there for a couple of days, move it into our normal fermentation room. Once we see some bubbles kind of start happening, and let's say picking numbers were 23.5 bricks. So by like day 3, when fermentation kicks off, day 4 you come in and it's 23 bricks, and then day 5 comes up and you're at 21 bricks. Day 6, you're at 12 or 8.
Yeah.
Like overnight, it'll jump
That's
15
insane.
bricks. I've seen it happen every year. Fermentation will get up to like 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, we don't use any cooling jackets or anything, so we don't have the ability to like really manage that ferment. It's just, it does what it does. And it'll blow through, gets hot. They're the messiest fermentation. They'll have a cap that comes above the bin, like this high above the bin, foaming monster purple ooze coming out of the top of it. And
beauty.
Stuff.
Just super healthy.
It's cool looking.
Yeah.
But that's when you know, like, oh, okay, I kicked off last night.
Yeah.
So do you ferment in tanks or in bins?
We ferment in 1.5 tons. We ferment in a bunch of different things, but our main fermentation bins are 1.5 ton stainless steel square alfalfa bins.
Okay.
So here in Walla Walla, because we're wheat and alfalfa, Lacole 41, when they started off, and Leonetti and Woodward Canyon, these guys didn't have any money to buy tanks back then, like big, huge fermentation tanks. But alfalfa bins were aplenty, and they were cheap. So you could buy these bins back then for $500 a piece. And so that's what started. And now, still everybody, but we use a lot of those. So that's our number one vessel. We have 2 concrete tanks where we can ferment about 3 tons each in each tank of grapes. Those are used for pump overs. We'll use Syrah and Cab Franc in those, and a little bit of Grenache. We've got 2 concrete eggs, which will ferment our white sins, like Chardonnay will see the egg. And then we've got 3 oak upright tanks.
Okay.
Those 3 oak upright tanks are used for fermentation as well as storage vessels. When harvest is over, we'll fill those back up.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool. Man.
How
that's
fun.
So interesting. Yeah. That's crazy.
You'll have to, next time you come down, we'll take you through the winery. You can see all the toys. So we're not a fancy winery by any means. There's a lot of fancy places here now in Walla Walla. So if you love seeing all the modern equipment and things like sorting tape, like optical sorting tables and things of that nature,
those are wild.
We don't do any of that stuff. So
I mean, one thing I love about your winery is something that we try to do on this podcast, which is kind of take a lot of the pretentiousness out of wine, so consumers can have more access to and not feel intimidated by the wine culture, right? And so that's what I really love. I connected with your winery immediately just because of that, and also the music side of me. I just love it. Like I could go hang out there all day.
I went to the one in Soto. Is that where it's at?
We've got a great tasting room in Soto.
That one's cool too.
I loved that one. I walked in and I came from Cardis, and I walked in and they were just so welcoming. And somehow I walked out with like 2 or 3 bottles, which was not the plan, but it was the plan apparently. It's always the plan. I don't know who I'm kidding myself. But it was homey, and I like that feeling. I don't need to act like I'm all high and mighty. Like, yes, I'm in the wine industry. I love what I do, but feeling at home and sitting there.
I'll get as geeky about wine as anyone wants to get. I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. But I'm not gonna lead off with that at all. Like, I want people to. It's not to say that our marketing plan from the very beginning, like I can't say we had that maybe in mind in the way that it's turned out. I think we just sort of naturally grown into what our brand is today,
which is awesome.
We had an ode to Pearl Jam by naming the winery Sleight of Hand, but we didn't like lean into the music thing like right away. But it quickly became a part of our brand, and our goal is when you walk into our tasting room is just to be comfortable. And
that's totally how I felt.
Music's one way to do that. And when you come in, and so if a customer comes in and has the opportunity to put on an album of somebody that they like. I don't care if it's Willie Nelson or Wu-Tang. It doesn't matter to me. But if they're comfortable, now they're already in a good headspace, right? They're wine tasting. How are you going to be in their element? Wine tasting. But now they're listening to their music. They're drinking some good wine. We're going to sit down and we'll give you some bullet points. If you have deeper questions you want to know about, my team is all capable.
They do a great job.
So, oh, good. Well, I'm glad. I appreciate that. So,
they do, yeah. I was at the Cardis tasting room in Soto, and then next door, heard this rager going on, and I was like, wow.
Obviously, I gotta go check that out.
So I had to go hang out and check that out. And the next day, I had a podcast with episode with Chris Horn, who is the beverage director for Purple. Yeah. And we did it at Cardis as well. And so naturally, right afterwards, I have some friends that work in that tasting room, and so we went next door to Sleight of Hand after that was over and had a good time. So
it's always a good time.
Yeah, it's cool. I've been to.
We use that for live music as well. We do a ton of live music over there. I think we've got 4 or 5 bands coming up in May and in June. I've got we're hosting a concert here next week for our spring release.
That's awesome.
We've got a Cure tribute band.
Oh, cool.
Coming to play.
Yeah.
I've got, Built to Spill?
I don't
know.
Out
of Boise?
Yeah.
All right. Well, now you have some homework to do.
All right.
Perfect. We're here for it.
So
definitely.
Your goal now, you have to go back and listen to the last 14 Built to Spill albums. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Got to do it.
But we're bringing them. They're from Boise, and we're bringing them to Walla Walla in August. They're playing the Motor Company downtown.
Oh, fun.
And, that's going to be a lot of fun. So it's a little bit of like, it's not like those events help us sell a ton of wine.
No.
But what they do is they attach our brand with that fun event.
Yeah.
And so if someone does see Sleight of Hand, like, oh, those are the guys who Built to Spill, to Walla Walla or whatever. And so hopefully they'll be a little endeared to buy our wine at that point. So, but
yeah, I was actually just telling my boyfriend yesterday. I was like, for our anniversary, we should, which is in September, we should go to Walla Walla. And I already know where I kind of want to go, you being one of them and a couple others around there. And I was like, yeah, we should do that. And he's looks at me, he's like, so like next month? And I was like, all right.
Come on, man.
Come on.
Come on, Sam.
So
get together.
I'm pushing for Walla Walla for our anniversary. And hopefully if we do, I'll give you a call.
Let us know. Yeah. Shoot me an email, give us a call. We'll take care of you for sure. Happy to get you guys out in the vineyards too.
That'd be so fun.
That'd be awesome.
I don't know how much vineyard exploration you've done down here.
So I'm definitely the vineyard side to this duo here. And I am a vineyard nerd. I would rather be out in the vineyard. Obviously I'm in the tasting room now, but the vineyard is my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you come down, we'll give you a nice little tour of the valley. So
I would love that.
Yeah. Well, it'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, Trey, is there anything that you would like to plug?
Oh gosh. I mean, we talked about a lot of our wines and stuff. So if you do have any other fellow music lovers on here, I think probably one of the most unique things that we do is we have a vinyl club.
Ooh.
So we sell. I have a retail shop for records in both Soto and in Walla Walla.
Okay.
And so we have it's like a little record store in there.
Yeah.
But 4 times a year, we release albums that I'm picking out and working with labels and pressing them like variant colors and things like that. So you're getting something truly unique. Some of them are reissues. Some of them are brand new albums and stuff like that, brand new bands.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of a fun way to, I think it just
that's so fun.
Ties into the to the brand again, right? So
yeah,
on brand, I guess is the best way to put it.
Are they full albums or is it kind of like a curated playlist each one?
No, they're full LPs.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love that.
We just released the last Jay Mascis album. He's the lead singer for Dinosaur Jr.
Okay.
And so we just released that album on Sub Pop, and it's been a blast.
How fun!
That's
a
awesome.
great idea.
Yeah.
Great marketing.
Well, Trey, I love what you're doing, man. I love it. Infusing music culture into wine culture. Your wines are spectacular, and I love them.
They're wonderful.
You're kind. I appreciate it. Well, looking forward to sharing a glass with you guys in person here soon.
Yeah,
absolutely. Would love it.
If my wife and I and the kids get to Chelan anytime,
give us a call.
Yeah, let us know, please.
We'll give you the grand tour.
Yeah.
We will. I love it.
Yeah, everyone check the show notes. We have links for their vinyl club, their wine club, their website, all their socials. Everything is right there. So go click the links. Trey, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers, you guys.
Cheers.
Wait, there
Cheers.
we go. Cheers.
Hey, you, now that I have your attention and you've listened to this wonderful podcast that we had to offer, we'd like you to scroll down. And what are they going to do when they scroll down, Ian?
Scroll down and give us some feedback. Rate us on your podcast platform, ideally 5 stars. And if you would give us some critical feedback, you can DM us on Instagram at officialbungpod.
Let's hear it.
Let's go. It is only 2 of us writing the show, 2 of us producing the show. It's me, Ian King, Jasmine Shattuck, and
the lovely Becca Hines
as our producers. And our writers are me, Ian King, and
Jasmine Shattuck.
let's go.
Let's go.